Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to part two of my presentation, Nonviolent Movements and the Military. Part two will be focused on how the military should engage with nonviolent movements, which is more my bread and butter. I was an infantryman in the U.S. Army for 5 years and have experience in counterinsurgency strategy, which we will be talking about in a moment. For recollection, part one was the opposite, which was how nonviolent movements should engage with the military. And then part three, the final part, coming up after this one, is up on DDR, on disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, which will do a brief overview of how nonviolent movements should welcome in defectors and formerly armed actors into their movements in successful, efficient, effective ways. So here's part two. Okay, the first thing I'd like to talk about is counterinsurgency strategy, which is a crucial tenet of any overall grand strategy of any military around the world, especially in today's age, where a lot of conflicts, the nature of conflicts has shifted from traditional state actors with large-scale militaries to the military having to face small insurgent groups, small guerrilla groups. We've seen this all across the world, most recently or most commonly now. Islamic terrorist groups from North Africa to the Middle East, and even in parts of Asia as well. So what counterinsurgency strategy lacks, and what the military should understand when trying to engage with nonviolent movements, is that the military needs nonviolent actors and nonviolent movements. Insurgencies are the biggest threat when they're violent, and the military needs to maintain or re-establish security. So a lot of times that's the primary focus, is to focus on gaining security back without the long-term implications of some of their strategic decisions and some of the tactics used to get that security back. So what counterinsurgency strategy focuses on or emphasizes is long-term political change, and that's something that nonviolent movements are fighting for as well. So there's a natural allyship between the military that is engaged in a counterinsurgency strategy and nonviolent movements. So what militaries could do in this case is kind of reach out and understand how to engage with these movements to form an overall strategy and develop kind of a game plan for this, what is called clear, hold, build overall strategy, which is clear out the violent insurgents, hold the ground, and then build kind of a long-term sustainable model for keeping those violent insurgents out. And this can't be done without nonviolent actors and nonviolent movements who are working on this already, just sometimes they don't have kind of the willpower and the manpower to rid out violent groups on their own. And the last thing is the emphasis on hearts and minds. A crucial tenet of any counterinsurgency strategy is to win over the people. The people are kind of the battleground. So the military needs to understand that when they turn to overly repressive and overly aggressive tactics, even when these are focused on nonviolent actors, that has a substantial risk of backfire. So oftentimes militaries will be so focused on ridding out a violent group and eliminating that violent group that they are alienating any nonviolent actors as a part of their mission. So militaries could understand better how to engage with nonviolent movements to prevent losing the people in this strategy. And the second part about this topic specifically, how military should engage with nonviolent movements, is that the military has a substantial power to influence government policy at home and abroad. So what this means is that the public support, for sure in the United States and then in many countries around the world as well, is very high for the military, and the government knows that, and the media knows that, and other influential actors know that. So the military should work to build on that relationship with the public, to allow for it to continue to be strong, to allow the public support for the military to continue to be strong. Lawmakers traditionally need support of military leaders, not just not specifically in the military leaders' actions. Military leaders often stay out of the political realm on purpose as a strategic decision, but lawmakers need the support of military leaders in their reporting, in their mission briefs, and the overall strategic goals, things like that. And so the military has kind of a lot of leverage in what policies get passed and what laws get made. For instance, if the government was to come out and want to implement an anti-protest law and then label it as a security issue, that's why they're doing it, for fear of terrorism, for fear of unrest, things like that, they would need the military to kind of, or any security force, to back up that fact, to back up that claim. So the military is in a unique position there to shoot back or to push back on the idea that a protest could be viewed as unrest, or that they could view it as dangerous. And then lastly, military security forces are often the most crucial tool of current leaders, meaning the most important tool that they can deploy to stop nonviolent movements. So the military needs to understand that, and needs to understand its role in the success or failure of nonviolent movements and the power that they have in that, and should be able to question an order or to question a command to stop a nonviolent movement, or to try to rid out a nonviolent movement when it might not be necessary to their mission.